We're gonna vote for people. Okay, I know, this is weird. I think I've been here before, like, I think I've done this. But what I want to do is, both myself and Paul are going to be your MCs once again this year. But one thing, this makes it a little bit ironic. Paul is not going to be with our cab next year, so he is our outgoing 9 and 10 regional rep. If you have a chance, get in contact with him, say hi, hear a story, he'll take you to coffee. Regional rep 9 and 10, that's a bunch of states in the West Coast area. I should still be sleeping now. No, that's like Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, Alaska, Arizona, just a few states. But we communicate with a lot of folks that direction. But this is Paul's last year. His last day will be June 30th. I want everybody to give him a round of applause for his work He is going to be your starting the actual ceremony MC.
Hello, my name is Paul Stevenson. I'm a regional rep for the National Consumer Advisory Board Steering Committee. Again, I want to say thank you for attending this rally. I have mentioned before, the other group showed up about the movement, about the work that we do, and how important it is to me. If you want to know more about me, you can Google my name, because there was a time when you Googled it, there would be a booking photo that showed up. And now it talks about the stuff that I do on a local and national level. So we're going to talk about the theme. The theme of this rally is that human rights are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person. Do you agree? They are interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible, yet these rights are not inherently given to us by the government. This is the strong point. It is up to us to demand that our rights to housing and health care be realized. Yeah! Mine, and I'll speak for all of us, and stop me if I'm wrong, is that housing should not be a privilege. This is a human basic right. Everybody sitting here should only pay 30% of their income. That's it. Not 58, not 60, not 70. I'm going to get angry in a minute. But again, housing is a human right. Note, I just want to quick note, just please refrain from speaking negatively about anyone by name or person. Oh, really? Please refrain from, yes. Please refrain from naming any legislation by its formal title. For example, instead of the American Health Care Act, call it new health reform legislation. And if I could just get a moment of silence here, bow your head, just a moment of silence. Thank you.
Willie Mack!
Oh. Yes, Willie Mack. Willie Mackey was a wonderful person. He was my mentor. I miss him dearly. I worked at the building he lived in, and I had the opportunity and the privilege and the honor to meet with him every day and just talk about the stuff that he does. At this time, again, I want to welcome Art and some others, but at this time I really want to introduce the CEO for the National Health Care for the Homeless Council, Mr. Bobby Watts.
Thank you all for being here. And we're at a very important place. Right across from us is the White House. We are in the nation's capital, where they form our laws, and that it is supposed to be representing the will of the people.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
We have in this country a crisis that human needs are not being met. I've said before here and elsewhere that homelessness is evil and must be destroyed. speak in moral terms when I say it's evil, and it's not a term I use lightly. I say it is evil because not having a home kills people. Not having a home destroys your opportunity. Not having a home is one of the things that will keep you from reaching your full potential. Not having a home is a violation of basic and fundamental human rights.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, the United Nations in 1948 passed a Declaration of Human Rights, universal human rights, that these are rights that are for people all over the world. But its roots were really found in a document that the founders of this country created. One of the first documents that really talked about human rights, rights that people have just because they are humans, was found in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, sir.
We know these words, and it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men," we would say all people, "are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." So it says it's self-evident. We don't need to argue. We don't need to have philosophical discussions. It says it's self-evident. If you are a human being, you should have certain rights. That's the basis upon which the founders of this country declared independence from England. Because they said their rights were not being recognized. Now it says they are endowed by their Creator. So these are different from civil rights, which we spent a lot of time talking about, which are rights that are given because a country says we're going to pass certain laws. They said this surpasses that. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, rights that cannot be taken away. Rights cannot be taken away, but they can be denied. And when rights are denied, then we have to demand that they are recognized.
Yes, sir.
They said among these rights, which are just self-evident, among them is life. Do we need health care to preserve life?
Yes, sir.
Is health care a human right?
Yes.
Do we need housing to enhance and preserve life?
Yes, sir.
Is housing a human right?
Yes.
It says we need liberty. We need to be able to free to reach our full potential. Do we need to stay in good health and need health care to have liberty?
Yes.
Is liberty a human right?
Yes.
Do we need housing so that we can be safe and that we can have the choices that we need to reach our full potential? Yes. So is housing a human right?
Yes.
It also says for the pursuit of happiness. Now, it goes on to say, and this is where we fall short as a nation. It goes on to say these are rights that are inalienable, that you can't take away from people. But it goes on further to say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The purpose of government, our founders of the United States said, is to secure these rights. That's the whole purpose. It says here. I didn't say it. The UN Declaration of Human Rights says it, and the founders of this country said it. That we have fallen far short of those ideals. We have placed profit over people.
Yes.
We have said it's more important that people get rich, and that even if it means some people can't have housing.
Well,
we have changed our housing policy in this generation to say that we'll make sure people have vouchers for affordable housing, to now they're only 1 out of every 4 households with children, with families, with disabled people, with elderly people. We have funding only for 1 out of 4 people that qualify according to federal definitions.
That ain't right.
That ain't right. That ain't right. We have to demand that this country lives up to the ideals and the true nature of what it has claimed to be.
Yep.
We have to demand that this government secure. That means provide for. That means it goes to the effort to make sure that everyone has these rights met.
Yes.
Housing and healthcare are human rights, and we need them in this country. And if we don't, our country is failing and it's living a lie. We want the truth to prevail. We want the truth to be what is experienced in this country. Healthcare and housing are human rights. We need healthcare, we need housing, and we need it when? Now!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. If you guys ever have an opportunity to pull Bobby or Mr. Watts to the side, please do so. He's got just full of knowledge. Right now, I wanted to introduce another speaker, Catherine Crossland. Yeah. Now I'm going to put his name to the face. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine Crossland, and I am a doctor who lives and works in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I want to welcome you to my hometown and to the nation's capital. It's so good to have you here. As a doctor who has cared for people experiencing, human beings experiencing homelessness for the past 10 years, I can tell you that healthcare is a human right.
Yeah.
And I think it is criminal that, and I am lucky because I work in a city where we have Medicaid for our poorest residents, including immigrants who are undocumented in Washington. And I think it's criminal that 15 states continue to opt out of Medicaid for their most vulnerable residents. It's just inexcusable. That ain't right. But even so, even though I work in this city where people theoretically have access to Medicaid, that is not enough. That is not enough. Because of all the medical interventions and best practices that we offer in the clinic, the best evidence-based intervention that extends the lives of people experiencing homelessness is housing. Right. I just want to share a brief story about a patient of mine who was stably housed for years. She had many medical problems, all of which were very well controlled while she was housed. And due to unfortunate circumstances, she lost her housing. And within 1 month of living in a family shelter and relying on fast food and soup kitchens, her heart failure and her high blood pressure were so out of control that she ended up in the emergency room. And despite our best efforts, she died within 5 weeks of losing her housing. Housing is health care. So I just wanted to say, keep up the good work for all the advocacy that you're doing for your clients and your patients, to advocate for more housing because their lives truly depend on it.
Healthcare is a human right. Fight. So I'm going to introduce this next speaker. Her name is Sabrina. She's from Alameda County, California. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello. I do outreach to... What? Bring it up. I've never been told I was not right. In the larger discussion of health care, more often than not, the issues of hygiene, cleanliness, sleep, and simple human rights to dignity are not given the attention and the priority that's needed. The simple acts of having a bed to sleep in, having a toilet to use when we wake, things that we all take for granted, are not afforded to those who are homeless, let alone the availability of a shower, laundry, or even clean water. Many public bathrooms, if they are available, don't even have a mirror, and that would only be of use if one was able to look and bring oneself to be looking at oneself in the mirror. Sorry, I screwed that one up. How can someone emerge from the shame in order to become cognizant enough to understand what services are being offered to them and to take the steps to process what is needed to obtain them? What some call psychosis is really the defense that a rational person must build to face in a world which they are forced to live in, to deal with the shame by whatever twist of fate that has cast them to be homeless without access to the basic services that all humans deserve to have. While we cannot afford others the basic human rights that we all have just because the twist of fate that has us housed and them not. For some, the only brief connection with reality that they have is to realize that their smell, their state of cleanliness, the possible defecation on their clothing that prevents them from even entering any space that they feel they may contaminate with the inhuman state that they are forced to exist in. If we wish to serve this population, and if housing is healthcare, and if healthcare is going to help keep people housed, one of the most important components in this is dignity. None of this is going to happen until people are given back or helped to take back their simple human dignity.
That's right!
So we'll keep this party going. We're going to have a couple of folks come up and we're going to talk about housing as a human right. I got Carmon Royals. She is also one of my folks that are stepping out this year from the National CAB. We hope that she comes back next year and signs up. But here we go. Carmon. I'm going all the way to the board.
Hi everyone, my name's Carmon Riles. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm also terming off the board there where I've been in service for 6 years. I do a little of outreach and a little of everything, but I am here to talk about what Section 8 did for me. Section 8 gave me life. It got me off the streets after 20 years. I was kind of grandfathered in because I didn't have to show all the rigmarole that you have to show these days, but it gave me a chance to be stable mentally, most days anyway. It gave me safety. It gave me true safety. You know, I can sit around in my house and be safe today, and not have to worry about being on the street, sleeping in a tent, and worrying about being raped on the street. It gave me freedom. It gave me such freedom. I can't even tell you the freedom I have today being housed. It gave me an opportunity not only to work on my mental health issues, but my health issues. Yeah. I can have a safe place to keep my medicine without worrying about it being stolen. Yeah, I pay 1/3 of my income towards my housing, and that's such a blessing, you know, because I have some income today, and that goes towards my housing, and it's like, I feel so blessed to have housing because I work with those consumers that don't have housing, and it reminds me every day of how blessed I am. And I get the chance to grow in my housing. You know, a lot of people have seen me come from where I was to where I'm at today. And the last thing I want to say is I'm healing today in my housing. All right! Section 8. And I encourage us to keep fighting for Section 8 because everyone deserves it that needs it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmon. So our next speaker Walker, he comes all the way from the West Coast. He's like me, he should be taking a nap right about now. No, Mike Soraya.
All right,
Art told me I have a minute to speak, so I'm gonna do that. I work with folks that experience homelessness that are coming off the streets that often are struggling with kind of life's biggest challenges. And one of the things I really want to say is that homelessness in America, it's about racism. It's about racism. At the end of the day, if we don't end racism, structural causes that are driving the things that cause homelessness, we're not going to make headway. We're not going to make headway. And that's our shame. We have to end the shame of racism. We have to end the shame that drives these factors that end up with our homeless situation. If we don't stop that, if we don't end homelessness by ending racism, ending structural systems and causes that drive it, we're not going to make headway. We need to make that our priority. We need to make ending race-blind policies. We have to actually have the conversation with each other. We have to look at ourselves, analyze where we're at, and think about what we need to do to make change. This isn't about just stopping homelessness in general. We really have to look at what's causing it, what's upstream. The council's strategic priorities say we're going to start to think about what's upstream, to stop just getting in the river and grabbing folks out of the river, but really going upstream and thinking about what's causing it. Wow! If we don't stop the cause that says people who are transgender are not allowed access to shelter. If we don't stop people who are immigrants from this country from being able to access housing in this country, we're not going to make headway. It's not right. We have to stop it. We have to stop it.
So the next couple folks that we got coming up is existing in public spaces as a human right. We have Megan and Calvin Lassiter. After those two, we'll have David Perry.
Hey y'all! Yay! What do we want? When do we need it? That's right. So my name is Megan Hustings. I'm the director of the National Coalition for the Homeless. We love the work that you all are doing with the Healthcare for the Homeless Council. You guys are the front lines and you're seeing the abject need that we all have. Homelessness began, this era of homelessness is fairly new. It began in the 1980s, and at that time, we decided as a country, or our administration decided, to defund our federal affordable housing program. So there was a... So there was a 75% cut. You look at the lines. From 1979 to 1983, it was over 75% cut to federal affordable housing programs. That ain't right. So how do you know what happened? We have burgeoning homelessness. We have entrenched poverty. We have a horrible affordable housing crisis. You guys are from all over the country, right? Whose community has enough affordable housing right now? No one? Hey, how about this one? If we don't have affordable housing, we have shelter, right? There's somewhere for people to be that don't have a home. And of course, the federal government now wants to kick out mixed immigrant families who have every legal status. They're following the law. They have every right to be in housing. Their own research shows. HUD's own research shows that 55,000 children will become homeless if they move forward with kicking all immigrant families out. That ain't right. Their charge is to end homelessness, is to house people, not create more, right? So that's why we're here today. That's why you're all here today, and we're fighting with you, and we're all fighting across the country because it's not right. It's not right. Housing is a human right. Housing is a human right. Housing is healthcare. Yes, thank you all. And now I'm going to hand over to my partner, Kelvin Lassiter, who is with us.
Thank you, Megan. And welcome to Washington, D.C., nation's capital. we are gathered here today because of injustice. One of our greatest advocates who ever walked this earth, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, quote, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Criminalization of the homeless is injustice. Criminalization of the homeless is injustice. For the next few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about it's time for this to end now.
All right.
It's time for this to end now. There's a plan that, if implemented properly, will rock this city and this nation to its core. There's three things we must do right now. Number one, show up at every homeless encampment suite.
All right.
Show up at every homeless encampment suite. Can we do that? Can we do that? It is not a crime to be homeless.
It is not.
Oh, y'all didn't hear me. It's not a crime to be homeless. We've been hearing a lot of alternative facts thrown around that homelessness is ending. Homelessness has been decreased. Now I want to give credit where it's deserved. However, if we don't have enough housing in all 8 wards of Washington, D.C., if we don't have enough shelter in all 8 wards of Washington, D.C., where the homeless supposed to go?
Well, all right.
Where the homeless supposed to go?
Right.
I would suggest maybe they sleep at 1350 Pennsylvania Avenue. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I pause for effect. Number 2, we must start marching every day.
Okay.
We must start marching every day.
Every day.
Now, my critics will say marching is outdated. We have social media. To my critics, that's true. However, there's something transformative about when people are marching and they look outside their window and there's 1,000 people or more saying, what do we want? Housing! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Housing! When do we want it? Now! When do we want it? Housing! When do we want it? Now! Call your elected officials, last but not least. Oh, y'all didn't hear me. Call your elected officials. Yeah! Okay, you say you may not be a telephone person. Okay, how about email your elected officials?
All right.
Text your elected officials. We have the power. I said we have the power. We have the power. We have a voting base in our community that, if effectively implemented, we can make change. If properly interjected in our voting base, we can make change. We have the power. We have the power. A perfect example of why voting matters is directly across the street. I pause for effect. Eating outside is not a crime. Feeding the homeless is not a crime. Oh, y'all didn't hear me. Sleeping on the park bench outside is not a crime. Oh, y'all didn't hear me. Panhandling is not a crime. People should not get shot down in the street for panhandling because they need help.
That's right.
It's not a crime.
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 When do we want?
Housing.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want?
Housing.
When do we want it?
Now.
Thank you.
So the next person that's coming up, we have elections during our general meeting, which is our business meeting. So July 1st, his new position will be co-chair for the NCAP, David Perry.
Beautiful people, love all these beautiful faces. Hey, did everybody have a good sleep last night? No. Hey, I had a great sleep. I was in the high $250 a night room, really good sleep. You know, I'll ask you a few questions though. You, sir, you had a good sleep last night? When you woke up this morning, what did you do? First thing you did when you woke up this morning? Yeah, I'll help you out, yeah. You took a shower, you brushed your teeth, you probably had, and I'll be frank here, full bladder, you probably relieved yourself, didn't you? Yeah. You brushed your teeth, you probably had something to eat too, didn't you? Yes, and that's what normal people do. You know, you get up, you take a shower, you clean yourself, you brush your teeth, you have something to eat. I'd like to ask everyone a question here. I'd like to ask you, man, a question here. What if, in fact, let me ask everybody to bear with me here. What if, after a very, very long day, here you are, tired, exhausted, okay? You're getting ready to go to sleep. You close your eyes. Everybody kind of close your eyes, okay? You're exhausted, and you lay your head down to sleep. And all of a sudden, you hear a whoop, whoop, okay? You feel the searing flash, white flash of a spotlight in your face. You hear over a loudspeaker, hello, 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 get up. You are now allowed to sleep here. Get up. And you're forced to move. How would you feel? How would you feel? You say you took a shower, sir. What if you kind of discreetly take your clothes off, you take a sponge, and you know you're funky? You know other people don't smell you. So you have to cleanse that off. You gotta cleanse that off. As soon as you take that sponge and you start to cleanse yourself, you hear that sound again. The whoop, whoop, whoop! And you hear that loudspeaker, sir, sir, sir! You cannot do that in public, sir. Okay? How would you feel, sir? And suppose, you know, the first thing you gotta do is eat some breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It is something that you have to do. Everyone has to eat. Suppose you're sitting down. You want to take a bite to eat. Once again, before you can even put a full morsel of food in your mouth, you hear that whoop, whoop, whoop of the police telling you you cannot eat. Okay? This is what people experiencing homelessness face every single day. This is what makes them into criminals. Just because you have a home does not make you into a criminal, does it? Is that right? No! You should be a criminal simply because you do not have a home? No! Simply because you are forced to conduct life-sustaining activities in public. You are forced to conduct life-sustaining activities in public because you do not have a home. Where else are you going to perform it? What is the cause of homelessness, folks? Who knows what the cause of homelessness is? The ultimate cause of homelessness. I'll let you know. The ultimate cause of homelessness is a lack of affordable housing. Who knows what the federal minimum wage is? Right? $7.25 an hour is a federal minimum wage. Okay? 30 hours a week. You can't even earn $300 a week. Do you know what the average one-bedroom is here in this city? Or most cities? About $1,200. Earning 40 hours a week, the average minimum wage, you cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment. That, my friends, is a fundamental cause of homelessness. The lack of affordable housing and the failure for most people to make a livable wage. That is the root cause of homelessness, my friend. So, we have a system here that condemns a class of people to homelessness and then adds insult to injury by making you into criminals. Is that right? No! Is that right? No! You should be criminals because you cannot make a livable wage and you cannot find affordable housing. This is a systemic problem. It is not a lack of character. It is not a lack of personal responsibility.
It is not due to addictions and mental illness. These things are prevalent throughout society, but people learn to deal with it. But folks who cannot make a livable wage are condemned to homelessness, living on the streets, and are condemned to being criminals. When I say housing is, you say a human right. When I say healthcare is, you say a human right. Housing is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. Housing is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. Housing and healthcare are human rights. Thank you, everybody.
I'm going to introduce the next speaker. The next speaker is going to be Jenny Metzler. Thank you, Jenny.
Hi, everyone. Are we fired up? Yeah! Are we pissed off? Yeah! Good. Because I only gave me 2 minutes. So I am Jenny from Albuquerque, and that's how I usually introduce myself. Hi, Carmone from Albuquerque. But I was asked to tell a story about what we do at Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless. So I'm going to step up and introduce myself in a way I don't often with friends. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless. Big title. Whether I deserve it or I'm entitled doesn't mean anything. But the point of this story is that I have some authority and some power to make the right decisions to address and prevent and end homelessness. So I'm going to tell a story about what we do in Albuquerque. What's it take to pay the rent? Money. So if you don't have any money coming in, you're at risk of homelessness. We all know that. Several years ago, I was invited to community discussions, a series of community discussions on education, environment, economic development, and then there was a homelessness group. And you can fill in the blank, whether it was the Community Foundation, the United Way, the Kiwanis, the Chamber of Commerce. We've all done these, right? So what does Healthcare for the Homeless do when we're invited to come give an opinion? We go! We show up. Yes, so Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless, we found board members, consumer leaders, we found staff, the right person, and we covered every single one of those groups because we know every single one of those issues is relevant to the work that we do in addressing homelessness. Right. So I showed up for the lunch. And I had worked with these people for a really long time in Albuquerque. And I showed up for the economic development group. And I walked in, and she had a lunchbox, and she started to hand it to me. She said, well, hi, Jenny. And then she said, oh, wait. And I still had my hand out for my lunchbox. She said, well, what are you doing here? Oh. And I looked at her, because she's known me. And I said, well, Nancy, you know us. And she said, oh, right, everything's connected. So I thought about that, and she finally gave me my lunchbox. And the people around the table all got to say one thing. And then they could sort of, clap their hands and walk away and go do their thing. And so I didn't talk about homelessness. I talked about what we at Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless do to pay a living wage, a housing wage, which we've been doing for about 15 years. Our senior team does not take an increase. We make plenty of money until our frontline staff are not at risk of homelessness. We have and review a full package of benefits. We absorb the increasing cost of premiums whenever we go out. We're doing this right now in our budgeting process. We start our budgeting process by making sure we're not undercutting the income and the benefits and the compensation to our 110 employees and put them and their families at risk of homelessness. This is now otherwise known as we're part of the economic engine, baby. So if people don't like it, we have a lot to say. We do it. There are others out there who do it. We know that. My cup here says be daring, so I'm going to be daring and maybe anger or insult some of my peers. I've done it before. Homeless service organizations, healthcare for the homeless organizations, community health centers, we should all be doing this. And we can't. It's inexcusable for us to say, well, we can't do that, because then we're just internalizing the marginalization, the oppression, and the economic injustice that we're all trying to fight. So I challenge you all to lead. Healthcare for the homeless can take us forward.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I love every one of you. I'm gonna introduce the next speaker, and her name is going to be Deborah Gilbert White. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak with you about homelessness as a result of eviction. I'm former homeless in the state of Delaware. I had lost my job, downsized, and was not able to get unemployment because my employer did not pay into unemployment. So when I went to social services to get assistance, I couldn't check any of the boxes that would allow the state of Delaware to give me help. And at that moment, I realized that the policies that were in place to help people that were asking for help, that needed help to pay their rent, was not in place, was not there to help people like me. And so it began advocacy around the issue of homelessness in the state of Delaware, and also working here now with the National Coalition for the Homeless, where we need to look at our policies and practices that prevent homelessness as much as we look at policies and practices that offer emergency services. And so if we have preventive measures for homelessness, then in Delaware, I could not get help until I became a statistic. And no one should become a statistic in order to get help. Once I lost my housing, I wound up sheltered, homeless. I was able to get an EBT card. I was able to get health coverage and the things that I needed to basically survive while I was looking for housing. But that shouldn't be. When people show up for help, they should be able to get the help that they need. And so we need to begin to look at ways that our policies help support those who may fall through the cracks. We need to look at changing policy. Thank you.
Okay, so this was an addition to this piece. This is one of my other co-chairs. This is also her last year. She is moving on to some bigger and better things for herself. But she is going to read you all a nice little poem called America the Pimp. Sakari.
Is driven by money, right? So I'm going to start off with an analogy. We're going to talk about America the Pimp. Got everybody on the whole stroll. Even you. How a good citizen, no, even you. Even you. Selling different things, a good citizen is judged by how much money they have and the status and respect that money brings. Bodies for sale, disguises, skills, power, merchandise, anything worth having's got a price. Money is something that everybody who lives in America needs, regardless of sex, color, age, or creed. You won't get nothing for something in this world. Everything that keeps you alive is real. If you're eating, got a roof over your head, then somebody has got to be paying the bill. Brothers and sisters, friends and enemies, I'm talking about money. That thing that keeps the so-called crooks and robbers hustling on the street. That thing that keeps the so-called police faithfully walking the beat. That thing that keeps a crooked politician safely in their seat. Money got the power to change the way you feel. It can make you feel good, baby, or it can make you feel ill. Money. Without money, the teachers won't teach you what they know. Without money, you can't even be a wino. Without money, the sick can't get well. Without money, you can't even pay your bill. Without money, the hungry can't be fed. And without money, the undertakers won't even bury the dead. Right. The root of all evil, the preacher says. So to save us from some of this evil, he walks away with a pocket full of it on collection day. Now, that ain't funny. No, it ain't. Because in America, even God needs money. It takes money to spread love and hate. It takes money to party and celebrate. Romance without finance is nonsense. The cost of living keeps going up. Union lines and picket signs. Everybody needs more money to stay alive. It sure is funky. People gotta turn tricks for America to pimp to survive. Ain't it? This poem was by a brother who was one of the Soledad prison poets. His name was Lige Daly. When he was released, he became a family social worker. He now walks with the ancestors, but we have his memories. Thank you all.
We do another hand of applause, please. So the next speaker I'd like to introduce, and if you ever have an opportunity to pull her to the side, because she's very, very busy, and she talks about policy. So I'm going to introduce Barbara DePietro.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. I'm going to take us full circle here. We started off with the Declaration of Independence. Let's finish with the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So Bobby Watts started us off right. Thanks, boss. Okay, you set us up. It goes on to say that governments derive their powers from the consent of the governed. That's usually where we stop. But let's go on, shall we? The Declaration of Independence goes on to say that whenever government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new governments. It goes on to say that when under a long train of abuses, reduces them under absolute despotism. Despotism, it's in there. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off the government and provide new guards to their future security. Look it up, it's in writing. That's the Declaration of Independence, my friends. Do you believe that the government has abdicated its responsibility to its people? Yes! I say this calls for a new revolution. Yes! I say this calls for a government that treats its people with dignity and respect. That's right! Where human rights are the inalienable truths that are self-evident. That's right! I say this calls for a government that is truly reflective of the governed. Our democracy not only encourages revolution, it demands it under the current conditions. Do you think the government should live up to the expectations of the founding documents of this country? Yeah! Do you believe we should unite to demand that the government fulfill its responsibility? Yes! Revolution starts in the hearts and minds of the people, my friends. Do you feel it? Yes! Do you feel it? Yes! I say we all stand up. I say we all speak out. I say we all demand what is ours by right. That's right! When you leave here, think about what is your role in this revolution. What will you do to further the rights, the inalienable rights to life and freedom and the pursuit of happiness? What is your job to fulfill the promise that was made to us as the people of this country? I say we call for a new revolution. Thank you.
So that was the end of our show. Thank you. Have a good night. No. So his first year chair for the National Consumer Advisory Board. I've learned a lot, I met a lot of people, and this year I've heard from folks from last year and the year before that every time I come up here I say something very inspirational. I didn't see it in the last time I seen my video, so I'm still trying to figure that out. All I know is that I am a freelance homeless advocate. I go to ground level, zero. That people on the streets are still there struggling. What is the struggle? You heard from David earlier that says, what is homelessness and how does somebody get there? I have a sign that I wrote. Can you put it up? It reads, I am awake. My voice matters. My story matters. So the next time you see somebody that's on the streets, remember that. You're awake, but their voice matters, their story matters. That's right. So we've been doing live streaming on Facebook all this time. It was the best opportunity that my son Junior back home had a chance to see Dad. Junior! So I just want to give him that. Enjoy the rest of your night. Just don't take pictures in front of that house because it won't be on your camera tomorrow. Just saying, it happened 2 years ago. Yeah, and don't be in the park after 9 o'clock. They will escort you out very quickly. I've done it twice now. But no, thank you very much once again for joining us at the National Consumer Advisory Board's rally with the NHCH 2019 conference. Thank you. Oh, before you leave, can we get everybody to move in really close? We're going to get a picture of everybody that was here.